This is another breaking story we're following for you. A teenage girl stabbed her boyfriend to death amid an argument, and today, nearly 2 years later, she's pleaded guilty. The deadly stabbing happened in Northwest Miami-Dade, December of 2024.
His mama said he was honest with her, told her he didn't want to be with her anymore. And that honesty, that's what got him killed. 17 years old, gone, in a parking garage in Miami. And the girl who did it stood in a courtroom and told the judge they were just horseplaying. Some words, when you hear them, just don't sit right. And that word right there? It did not sit right with a lot of people. It did not sit right with his family, and it is not going to sit right with you either. This is the story of Yahkeim Lollar. In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Yahkeim Lollar was 17 years old and living in Miami-Dade, Florida. By all accounts, he had a future. His mother described him as a boy with a bright future ahead of him. A boy who hadn't even had the chance to figure out who he was going to be yet. He was in a relationship with a girl named Jakara Malik. She was also 17 at the time. They were young. They were in each other's lives the way teenagers are. Deeply, intensely, the way that feels like everything when you're that age. But somewhere along the way, Yahkeim made a decision, a very human decision. He decided he didn't want to be in that relationship anymore. Now listen, breaking up with someone is not a crime. Choosing yourself is not a crime. Being honest with the person you're with is not a crime. His mother would later say, in her own words, that her son told Jakara the truth, that he didn't want to be with her, that he was done. And she said that his honesty, his realness, is the very reason he's no longer here. Make it make sense. Because what kind of world are we living in where a boy tries to do the right thing, tries to be upfront, tries to be honest, and it costs him his life? December 2024. Northwest Miami-Dade. The two of them are together in a parking garage. Now, we don't know the full weight of what was said between them that night. We don't know how long the conversation had been going. We don't know who raised their voice first, or what the temperature of that moment really was. What we do know is that there was a knife, and we know how the night ended. Yahkeim's mother was very clear when she spoke about what she believed led to that moment. She said her son's behavior, his honesty, the fact that he was done with the relationship, that was the trigger. That Jakara's reaction to being told it was over is what set everything in motion. She said, and these are her words,
"She took my son's life for no reason. She took my son's life because he was honest with her, that he didn't want to be with her."
A boy tried to walk away, tried to be real about how he felt, and he never got to walk away at all. Now, Jakara's side of this has always been that it was not intentional, that this was not something she meant to do. Her defense team, from the very beginning, has maintained that this was an accident, and in court she would go on to describe the moment as the two of them horseplaying with a knife. Horseplaying with a knife in a parking garage. Anyways, what we know about the actual moment is this. Yahkeim Lollar was stabbed. The wound was fatal. He did not survive. A 17-year-old boy in a parking garage in Northwest Miami-Dade died because of a knife wound. His whole life, every version of who he could have been, ended right there. And Jakara Malik walked away from that parking garage. Now the details of exactly how the knife ended up in her hand, how the wound happened, what position they were in. Those specifics were not fully laid out in open court the way they would have been in a full trial. because this case never went to trial. What matters right now is that a mother got a call that no mother should ever have to receive. That her son was gone. That a parking garage in Miami had become the last place Yahkeim Lollar ever stood. Let me tell you something. There is no preparing for that kind of news. There is no version of that call that doesn't destroy you. And what came next for his family was not just grief. It was a fight. After Yahkeim was killed, after his family buried him, after they sat with that grief that doesn't have a bottom to it, the system did not move the way they expected it to. Charges were not filed immediately. More than a month passed. A whole month. And in that month, Yahkeim's family was not sitting quietly at home waiting. They were outside, in the streets, holding protests outside the Miami-Dade state attorney's office. They lost their son, their brother, their family, and then had to go stand outside a government building and demand that somebody be held accountable for it. They had to make noise just to be heard. They had to show up in their grief and fight for the system to do what it is supposed to do. A teenage girl stabs a teenage boy in a parking garage, and the people in charge take their time deciding whether or not to even charge her. Meanwhile, a mother is standing outside with a sign, screaming her son's name into a city that wasn't listening fast enough. Their calls for justice eventually worked. Prosecutors did file charges against Yahkeim Lollar, but not until more than a month after Yahkeim died. And the charge they landed on was manslaughter, not murder. Manslaughter. Now, manslaughter, legally speaking, refers to a killing that happened through negligent conduct, something that was not intended to result in death. So the charge itself already carried an acknowledgement that this may not have been premeditated, that it may not have been planned. The law gave that much to Yahkeim from the start. But Yahkeim's family? They were not satisfied with that framing. His mother made that very clear. She said, and listen to how she said this, because every word matters. Manslaughter is negligent conduct that was brought on even though it was not intended to result. It says a whole lot as far as I'm concerned. She understood what the charge meant legally, and she had her own feelings about what it meant in reality. Because at the end of the day, her son is still gone. The charge doesn't change that. The legal language doesn't fill the space he left behind. Yahkeim Lollar was charged, and for a while, this case looked like it was heading to trial. A hearing had been scheduled. The family was preparing themselves for what a trial looks and feels like. The testimony, the back and forth, the waiting, all of it. But that is not how this played out. There was no trial. There was no plea deal either, meaning the prosecution and the defense did not sit down and negotiate a sentence behind closed doors. What Yahkeim did instead was plead guilty, openly, and leave the sentencing entirely in the hands of a judge. That is a significant legal move. When you plead guilty without a deal, you are not guaranteed anything. You are walking into a courtroom, admitting what you did, and then standing there while a judge decides what the rest of your life looks like. No negotiations, no safety net. Her defense team has said from the beginning that this was an accident, and in court, Yahkeim described the moment as the two of them horseplaying with a knife. That was her explanation for how a 17-year-old boy ended up dead. Horseplaying. Now, the sentencing hearing is still ahead, and both sides are preparing for it. The prosecution is expected to ask for prison time. The defense is going to ask the judge for mercy, leaning on the claim that Yahkeim never intended for any of this to happen, that she was a teenager, that this was not malice. Yahkeim's family wants the maximum, 30 years. His mother did not mince words about where she stands. She said, "I want the max. A life for life. You get what I'm saying? She took my son's life for no reason." And then she said something that stopped a lot of people in their tracks. She said Yahkeim took her son's life because he was honest with her. because he told her he didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. And his mother said that Jakara's reaction to being told it was over, her actions, her behavior, what she called her entitlement, is the very reason Yahkeim didn't want to be with her in the first place. Like, the boy saw something, he tried to leave, and he never got the chance to fully go.
Yeah, that's right. Yahkeim Lollar pleaded guilty today, and now she will let the judge decide her sentencing. When it comes to prison time, she is facing up to 30 years behind bars. Take a look. This is Yahkeim Lollar. She was 17 at the time that she stabbed her boyfriend. She's charged with manslaughter for killing her boyfriend, 17-year-old Yahkeim Lollar. Lollar's family has been very vocal since the beginning, holding protests outside the Miami-Dade State Attorney's office, demanding accountability. Their calls for justice eventually led prosecutors to actually file charges against Malik more than a month after the killing. Today, nearly
Yahkeim Lollar was 17 years old. He never got to turn 18. He never got to figure out who he was going to become. He never got to move on from that relationship the way he was trying to. He just never got to. And his mother has had to carry that. She has had to carry the grief and then turn around and carry the fight, and then stand in a courtroom and listen to the word horseplaying used to describe the last moments of her son's life. No mother should have to do any of that. But here is what this case leaves behind. Beyond the courtroom, beyond the charge, beyond whatever sentence a judge hands down, it leaves behind a question that this community needs to sit with. Yahkeim Lollar deserved more time. He deserved to grow up. He deserved to be someone's future, and instead, he became a case number and a courtroom and a mother's grief that has no end date. Say his name, Yahkeim Lollar. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something, drop a comment, share this video, and make sure you subscribe to Dark Whispers, because we are not just telling stories here. We are making sure these people are not forgotten. We will see you on the next one.